All right, are you good to go when
I'm good to go.
good if I
Yes.
start? All
Yeah.
right. So thank you everyone and welcome to the Canadian Society of Organic Land Care, or SOL's, National Weekly Zoom series called Year of the Ecological Garden. For now, I'd like to ask everyone to mute themselves, please, and I see that everyone is right now. I'm Kristen Knoll, and I'm the incoming director of SOL, and I'm happy to be your host for this event. I'd like to start by acknowledging that I'm coming to you today from Nova Scotia in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. It'd be wonderful to see where you are all joining us from. So I invite you to just pop that in the chat now if you want. We can't do our work without support, and we gratefully acknowledge support from Guy College, the leading school for organic land care professional development and diploma courses. SOL's membership includes accredited professionals, and SOL also welcomes public memberships who wish to support ecological and holistic land care. If you're not a member, please consider joining. And note that organic land care is the only accepted standard in Canada, and the SOL standard, which outlines principles, practices, and products, is available for free on our website, which is organiclandcare.ca. And all SOL accredited practitioners follow the standard. As I mentioned, this has been the year of the Ecological Garden. And because of this, all year we've been meeting every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern with anyone interested in learning or sharing more about working holistically with the land. So every month we feature a theme that impacts our work. And this month it's livelihoods in ecological land care. This will be our final webinar of the year, but you can catch up on any webinars that you might have missed on our website, again, organiclandcare.ca, and I'll put that in the chat. We will open the floor up for a question period when the speaker has done their presentation. You may ask questions via the chat during or after the presentation, or by unmuting yourself and asking the question directly during the question period. This is a great opportunity to connect and share knowledge, and together we can make more of an impact than working on our own. Please note that we record these sessions and they will be available on the website. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Arlene Hazzan Green from the Backyard Urban Farm Company, who will be talking with us about how to find a green job. After 3 successful decades working in the motion picture industry, husband and wife team Arlene Hazzan Green and Mark Green co-founded the Backyard Urban Farm Company, an award-winning organic vegetable landscaping company in Toronto. They're on a mission to inspire, educate, and empower urbanites to grow their own food and help them reconnect with nature. Arlene is an organic master gardener and an accredited organic land care practitioner with SOL. She's also an Emmy Award-winning television director and writer. Her company designs, installs, plants, and maintains organic edible gardens in homes, schools, businesses, and institutions. They design and deliver educational programming for adults and children and contribute to local community through leadership of volunteer projects such as the West Lodge Community Garden and Toronto Urban Growers. It was established as a response to Arlene and Mark's growing awareness of and resulting unease with their own contribution to climate change and their need to find a meaningful solution. So I'll start this, we're going to do this in an interview style way. So I'll start by asking Arlene, if you can just tell us a little bit about the history of the Backyard Urban Farm Company, any context that you'd like to provide.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thank you for joining us. It's great to see your names. Don't see your faces, but I see your names, so that's great. We are going into our 14th year. So we started this business about 14 years ago, coming out of the film business and feeling like we really needed to do something that more closely aligned with our values. And our values really started to shift along with climate change and our really strong awareness that we were on a slippery slope to disaster. And, the more that we were in our gardens and growing our own food at home, the more happy we were, really, quite simply, and the more we wanted to do it. And I often say in the film business, it was a lot of no. everywhere you turn, you are getting the answer no. But in this world, it feels like the answer is always yes. And it's so much nicer to be able to work in that kind of space, a very positive, open space. So we started working in our out of our home, this home here, and we started in our own backyard and started with our neighbors and our friends, and slowly our business grew and our client base grew. And now we're at the point where we just this year moved out of the house. We moved away from home and our business anyway, and set up our own greenhouse and our own landscaping yard in a parking lot in south of Etobicoke, which is just 15 minutes away from us. So we are now at the point where we've actually can lay down roots in one place and get settled and turn to the next plateau or the next climb. We're actually on a plateau. We feel like it's been a big climb to this point, but now we're at a place where we can sort of take a deep breath, look around and see, okay, what's next? Oh,
Wow, that's incredible. So today we're talking to people that might be interested in starting a career in this industry, this environment. So I'm wondering if you can provide some input on what a person could expect from a job in urban agriculture or urban horticulture, or what that even means.
right. Right. Well, if you're standing on the outside of an industry, it could be daunting, not knowing the industry at all and not knowing where you might fit within it. So I guess there's two ways that you can look at it. You can look at it as being an employee of a company, an already existing company, or you could look at it as you are an independent sole proprietor, independent contractor, or entrepreneur who's starting their own business, and they have similar characteristics, but they're also quite different. And I guess that would be one big question I would ask myself first. Like, do I want a job and work for somebody else and get great experience on the job? Or do I want to work for myself and get great experience on the job? And I think it probably boils down to your temperament. If you are somebody who can handle risk, somebody who likes to be independent, somebody who has, you have to have a certain number of resources, not necessarily financial, but a place to work out of. I mean, with this industry, and the industry either being defined as, let's just say it's the green industry. So that could be urban agriculture, or horticulture, let's say. They're what it's often said about it is that there's a low barrier to entry. So you have, if you have a truck and a wheelbarrow and a shovel, you're in business. Um, it's not like you need in like the tech industry or, some of the other industries, you need like a huge amount to get started. So you can actually get started fairly easily. So I would say that would be my first question, is to explore the idea of, where do I belong? Am I an entrepreneur or am I an employee? And from the perspective, if you're an employee, because we can talk all about entrepreneurs, or maybe we could actually ask the group if they're more, do they want to focus more on the entrepreneurial side, or whether they want to talk more about and being an employee, if they want to have some ideas about that. So while people are responding, I'll just start talking about employees anyway. Um, there are a number. It's a really great time to be looking for a job in this climate, because we as employers are crying for great people, and they're very hard to find people who want to work in this industry. But I'm hearing it all across the board that that the workforce has shrunk, and I'm sure everybody has heard this through the news as well. That it's a shrinking workforce. Part of that is because of us boomers who are all retiring. That's part of it. I think a pandemic also really laid bare possibilities of different ways of earning a living or living a life. So some people learned that working from home is actually pretty great, and actually they could maybe live on less and maybe didn't need to work so much. So I think it's been a real change in the last 2-3 years where people really are focusing on what matters to them most. And so that's one shift that's happening. So the real plus side in trying to find work in this industry is that we need you so badly. So it's kind of like an employee's market right now. The other thing is that because we're becoming, as employers, we're becoming more and more aware of the changing shift in the demographics. So from boomers to millennials to Gen X to Gen Z, we are evolving as employers to try to understand the different needs and the different ways of thinking and learning and being in those different generations. And which it's really great for us because we're being forced to change our ways in a lot of ways. You know, we're not abusive, do what I say, not what I do kind of people anymore. Now the industry is much more collaborative and interested in more values driven businesses. So, and what better business than the green business, the green industry, than to foster those ideals and to provide opportunities for people who want to pursue their values more deeply. So there are more opportunities than there were, say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. When we started our business, it was very difficult to find qualified people or even people who even knew that this kind of business even existed. And in fact, there were not many businesses that existed. So there weren't that many jobs available in the urban agriculture. Horticulture has been around for a long time. But there weren't that many jobs if you wanted to grow food or if you wanted to have any sort of urban agricultural business, food production, food distribution, different kinds of like aquaponics or hydroponics or water farming, or there's so many different businesses now that exist that didn't exist before. So that's another plus right now, is that there's so much diversity, so many people getting into it. So there are a lot of different varieties and different career paths that you can go. Are you sciencey? Are you more touchy-feely? Are you more like community-based, let's say? Are you a not-for-profit type? Are you more a for-profit type? Are you into teaching? Are you more into like hands in the ground, digging, planting, harvesting? So many different paths that you can go, which is good, but it's also can be daunting, right? When you're going out there and looking for work. But it's a really good time to be looking for work. In Toronto, we have there's two really strong proponents for growth in this industry. One is Landscape Ontario, which is a professional association of landscapers. And I'm sure there are similar kinds of associations all across the country. I know that there's a Canadian Landscape Association, and I'm sure there's chapters all across. So getting to know about Landscape Ontario really took our business to the next level. And they are very strongly focused on education, apprenticeship, and grow programs, like bringing people in from, let's say, different industries, transitioning them to a new industry. So professional associations like Landscape Ontario is a really great place to start. And then there's the other side of it, which is more grassroots, which I have to mention Toronto Urban Growers. I know that in Montreal there's an urban growers group. I'm sure out in BC there's urban grower groups as well. And they are a great place to start networking and start understanding who's doing what. What are the businesses? What are the policymakers, the not-for-profits, the businesses? the training facilities, that kind of thing. So there's a collection, because the people who've been working in urban agriculture for so long, the last 12, 15 years. Now there's a hub, and it's a really growing, big, vibrant hub, and very welcoming, and very diverse. And so there's lots of great opportunity for research, at least in Toronto, but you don't have to be in Toronto to be able to access the information. Um, so I would say that I'm not even sure what you even asked me. What can you expect from a job in urban agriculture? So I guess that's giving you an overview of what's available. I wonder if anybody has any questions about that before I get specific about what could be expected, kinds of things you could expect to do. Does anybody have anything they want to ask?
Yeah, you can either unmute yourself or you can ask it directly in the chat. We do have some people mentioning in the chat that they'd be interested in both self-employment as well as employment with a company, and a lot of people are interested in both. But yeah, you make a really good point that this is a really good time to be entering the industry, and it really is the employees market. And I know you mentioned that there's so much variety in the different kind of paths or roles or positions that you could take on. I'm wondering if you could speak to, while we wait for some questions to roll in, what kind of training or education or background somebody might be looking for when hiring somebody.
Right. Well, I'll say this, that almost to a person, skills can be trained, but attitude cannot. So who you are, what you bring in your heart and mind is the most important thing. And if you're a nature lover, if you love working outside, if you love being physical, if you love working in a team, then there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you. So that's the first thing that we look for, is a really positive, curious, passionate mind and attitude. And then all the other stuff can be learned. And depending on what it is that you're interested in, there are so many different ways to learn it. The other aspect of it is that's kind of an interesting point, is that the skills that you have in life all apply. So, for instance, I started from the film business. I was a director and a writer. I was a producer, and I managed people. I was a creator. So, but what does that have to do with growing vegetables and running a landscaping company? You would think that they were so divergent, and yet those skills that I had in that world were quite easily transferred to the skills in this world. So it's very easy to get discouraged and say, well, what do I know about this? But if you've got the passion for it, you would be amazed at how easily those things can be translated into other industries. So if you can use a computer, if you're tech savvy, if you are good with people, if you love being outside, those are some of the things. All of those things can be translated and trained. So what did you ask about training?
Yeah, what kind of training or education somebody might need, but that's a really good point, that the soft skills really are everything. So having all of that knowledge from a variety of different backgrounds, it all translates and it's all relevant.
That's right.
The passion's there, and the work ethic and the attitude. So that was great. Thank you.
And the practice, yeah. So that the practice of working through different kinds of industries. When I started working as a kid, I worked as a waitress. They're called servers now, but that was my industry. I worked in restaurants and hospitality, and that was not that different from the film business either. You're on your feet, it's go, 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 it's really timed, you're working in a team, and then that same thing translated to this, so those three industries actually were very strongly related. So I find that a lot of people who come into this industry now, working with plants and working outdoors have come from restaurants. The restaurant business have also come from the film business. Um, a lot of people have come from just straight out of school.
Mhm.
Um, so so where you can come from is can be very, very, very diverse. And training, well, of course, Gaia College is a great. I'm so happy that I found Gaia College because I was sort of wandering around the world, not really knowing where I could get the a really good education, really hands on. I found my people when I got to Gaia, and I loved actually working online, which I was surprised because I'm a very outgoing person. I love working in with people and in person, but yet I found that I could actually go at my own pace. And I realized, thanks for the link. Yeah, that's good. I actually found that by going my own pace, some of the problems I had as a kid in school of wanting to take it at my own pace, I was always a troublemaker because I was slowing the teacher down. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more detail. I wanted to take it off into different tangents, and the teacher just wanted to plow ahead. But by working in an online system, you can take it at your own pace, and you can um, enjoy it fully and completely. So I would start with the Organic Master Gardener course because that is foundational. That is where you really, really switch from an old way of thinking about nature and and our relationship to it, and a new way of thinking. At least that is has been for me and for the people uh, that have taken it through our company. Um, One thing I will say about employers that you know, when you're looking for work, you're looking for a job. Yes, we are interviewing you, but you are interviewing us as well. And I would be very, because you're in a you know, an employee market, I would be very um, detailed and critical of where you're going to make sure that you're getting paid a livable wage,
Mhm.
that that you are working in an environment that's going to encourage your growth, because jobs like that exist out there. There are people who think that way. So try not to get discouraged by the, you know, the anonymity of a lot of job, a lot of jobs. Education is a huge part of it, and we support the growth of our staff. And everybody, actually, all 8 of our staff members are taking courses right now through Gaia College.
Oh, wow.
Um, one is taking another course, a leadership course through a different venue, but and 3 of us are on the last week. This is the last week of our rainwater harvesting course, which is our final course towards our organic land care diploma. So
Oh,
3 of us will be, yeah, it's taken us 5 years because we do one course a year because it's busy. It's hard
mhm.
not to, it's hard to do these courses in the busy season, which is spring, summer, fall. Um, but yeah, so we'll have our organic land care diplomas as well. And we've supported that. I believe it's really important. So look for an employer who's going to support your growth.
Mhm. Wow, well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
And yeah, just for the sake of transparency, and you touched on it a little bit, but can you speak to what sort of pay ranges somebody could expect in a green job? And I know
Sure.
that's going to definitely differ between being self-employed or working for another organization and the type of organization, but would you be able to provide a little bit of insight on that?
Sure. Sure, and you can also get these kinds of rates through professional associations as well. I know Landscape Ontario is very transparent, and most jobs now, thanks to the advocacy of a lot of different groups, are posting the rates because otherwise it's not transparent, and it's, you never know, why, you know, is there a rate disparity from one person to another. So I can talk about our rates and how they've evolved, and a lot of our colleagues, and I think that they're pretty standard industry wide. So, an entry level position would be somewhere in the $18 an hour range, um, but should sort of quickly move up. A living wage in Toronto, I just saw the stats, was 22 something. So 18 is not really a livable wage. But it may be where you'd have to start and how do you survive on that? Maybe it's younger people who are living at home still, um, or people who have switching careers and maybe have a savings to live on. But a standard gardener position would be 20 to 22 an hour. A technician could go up to like 22 to 25. um, our highest rate is 29 to 32 for a supervisor with um, significant skills. Um, and and even that is a challenge because the biggest difficulty or the biggest hurdle to get over in this industry is the seasonality. So we're working, when you think about the number of hours that you would actually work in a year, a full-time position is 2,080 hours. A typical number of hours for a seasonal business is 14 to 16, maybe not even that much, 1,600 hours. So where's your income coming for the other 4 to 600 hours yeah, 4 to 600 hours. So, and this is a challenge for a business as well as an individual. So the business, we're constantly thinking about ways that we can expand our season, that it's not just the planting season, and that's where it was when the beginning, and it's not just planting and maintenance season. What can we do in the winter to continue to bring income in, or make enough in that amount of time that we can sail through those dry periods? Um, what has been happening in the last number of years has been the idea of EI in combination with the sub program. It's a program that is run through the Employment Center, um, and it must be national. I don't think it's just Ontario. And what it allows for seasonal workers to do is, as a business, I can lay off the staff. If they've worked up to 700 hours or more, they can claim EI. And then I, as an employer, through the sub program, if I can afford it, I can offer up to 95% top up for their wages. So what that's doing is it's enabling me as a business to be able to retain my staff and build a team that comes back again and again and again, because the cost of hiring and retraining is very great. But you have to be able to afford it. So we have retained. This year is our first year because we've been focusing on our staff as our biggest resource. We've retained everybody from last year. So, and we're a small team. We're 8 to 10 at our peak, and so and they're coming back and they're on EI. Some of them have other jobs that they have these side hustles. Some of them do, and a lot. It's a great time for training as well. Um, but this year, when we sit down to do our budget, we're going to work on trying to be able to offer a top up as well. And there are lots of landscaping companies that do that. So they're bigger than we are. They've been around longer, but there are places out there that will do that, and it enables you to continue without having to look for work. You are no longer obliged as you would be if you were actually, your job ended and then you had to look for work and you went on EI, but you would be obliged to look for work. Through this program, you don't have to.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
I hadn't been aware of that, but that's an excellent kind of initiative to be able to retain employees, which is so important to not have to undergo training every single year and going
Right.
through the hiring process, which is taxing on a lot of people. So that's wonderful. I'm
Well, and it
wondering.
also means that the staff member also doesn't have to look for new work all the time.
Mm,
It's the stopping and starting, the interruption is really difficult on building a career with momentum.
yes, definitely, definitely. I'm wondering if we can shift a little bit to maybe the starting your own business or running your own business side
Right.
of things. And you've been doing that. So I'm wondering what you think are the ideas or values that you need to consistently check back with when you're making business decisions or deciding on next steps or kind of figuring out how to grow the organization. What kind of guides those kind of decisions?
Well, your values and your mission guide everything. So if you have
Mhm.
a very solid idea of why are you here? What are you doing? That is the number one thing. And so if you've got a really solid, clear picture of why you're there, you'll know what to do almost always because you'll always go back to that. Um, it's not easy. I would not be able to do it without my partner, my husband. He is, as aggravating as he is. um, uh, yeah, he's my rock and I'm his, and we split tasks, and we balance each other out because I have the vision and the pie in the sky ideas, and he has the solid. Okay, how's that going to actually practically come to fruition? Is that a realistic plan, or is that another one of your harebrained schemes? So, having a partner, whether it's a husband, a wife, a spouse, a brother, a sister, somebody is really helpful to have because it's a lot of work. It's, hours and hours and hours a day. Like we work constantly, especially when it's busy. Um, so having a partner. The other thing is that is critical is mentors that you trust and admire and who see your spark and want to build it. So finding the people who will support you, you really need that somebody with a business mind who can help you with um, trying to figure out how to manage your money because money is like the basis of it all. Unfortunately, it's the foundational structure of everything that you do. And if you learn to manage it well, it's your power. It's your superpower. So even managing debt is a useful thing to learn. And you got to know your money. You got to know your books. Otherwise, you're constantly feeling that sort of gnawing thing in the pit of your stomach, and you can't pay your bills, and then people don't trust you, and so you got to learn the money side. And if you get a mentor who knows that kind of stuff, that's really important. Um, and yeah, I think you really have to learn the seasonality of it. So use your time wisely in the winter. That's your planning time, and once April, even March hits, like you got to go. It's go time. So enough planning, execute the plan that you have through the spring and summer, and adjust as you go. And I will say that this is the biggest thing I've learned over time is about time. That whatever you plan, it takes years to accomplish. It's not, oh, I'm going to do it this year. That idea that you have, that's a massive idea that's going to take like a decade to develop. This idea that we had about Buffco, this company, I had no idea it was going to take us this long to get to the point where we could move out of the house and actually get our own yard. That's 13 full years before we could actually get our shit together. So yeah, it's not easy, but it sure is profoundly inspiring to do. Feel fulfilled. We feel like we're in the right place. We feel like by running we choose our own destiny. And I think that's a kind of personality. Like I've always been that way. My husband's been that way. Um, I've never been an employee type. I've had maybe, from the time when I was waitressing, I had a job for the 6 or 7 years that I was waitressing up until I was about 23. And then I hit the film business and I was a freelancer all the way through that time. So I would do the same thing. I would work for 6 months of the year, make a shitload of money, and then I would have 6 months off to be able to do my own films and, do my own side hustle things, and then I would do it again. So it takes a particular kind of personality to be able to do that. And if that's not you, don't push yourself to that. Get a great job with really great, inspiring leaders who care about you, and you'll have a fulfilling opportunity as well.
And you've talked a lot about the work and the dedication that's required to be successful in the field. Would you say having that flexibility and having that sense of fulfillment is one of the more rewarding things? I was wondering if you could just discuss a little bit about what is the most rewarding aspect of working a green job. I know there's some obvious benefits, saving the planet, but I'm wondering if there's anything specific
So
that you
personally,
appreciate from working in the field.
well, I like being outside a lot. I find it very magical. Uh, I never tire of the little sparks of um, magic that come from a seed, germinating, and then it tastes good, and seeing a bird eat a worm. I mean, all these little tiny things are still endlessly fascinating to me, and the beauty of it all too. Like as an artist, I love the color, and the senses are just alive all the time outside. And when I can introduce that to other people and I see that spark in them, I see that their little minds are being blown as well. That's what it's all about. And that to me is okay. If we could do that and we could do that, we could get this kid and that old man. And uh, if everybody's feeling that, then we're actually building that force. That it just sounds so corny, but it's actually true. It's endlessly rejuvenating. It keeps building on itself. So that to me is why I do it, and I love getting other people to do it too. um, that's the best part. The hard part is the onslaught of challenges. There are always forces that are working against you, like uh, not enough money, or um, not enough people, or, I'm just thinking of some of the problems that we've had, or some of these, like, sometimes there are these oppressive systems that push down on you, like insurance, or injury is another one. And that's something I actually is very, very important to mention when it comes to green jobs. We are working with implements that can hurt you. We drive vehicles. There are knives and pruners, and we're up on working at heights. There are so many possible ways to hurt yourself on the job: lifting too much, pulling your back out, hitting somebody in the head with a hammer. I mean, there's all sorts of different things. So very important to have safety training and to work with an employer who puts safety first. Absolutely important. If you're working for somebody who is a laissez-faire or cool about it, you don't have to work for them. You don't have to get up on that ladder if you don't feel safe. You have the right to say no, to refuse work if it's too hot, if it's wrong. No job is worth your health or your safety. So absolutely, absolutely important.
Yeah,
And
that's a really
that's
good
why,
point
yeah,
to
and you
add
want to
in.
do,
It's very important.
yeah, you want to have a business. I mean, it's very easy. There's lots of independent contractors out there starting their own business, the person with the truck and the wheelbarrow and a shovel, and they need one person to help them because there's too much work for them themselves. But they don't have WSIB. They're paying you under the table. Maybe they're not paying you enough, but they're promising that they're, going to give you the opportunity and train you. I think you really have to think twice about an employer like that, if they can't offer you proper employment with proper
Mhm.
safety and proper insurance coverage.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So we have about 5 minutes left. I have more questions, of course, but I wanted to open up the floor to any participants that might be tuning in that have any questions for Arlene. So I'd invite you to either put them in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask her. And so somebody asked, how did you begin marketing your business?
Good. That's a good question. Marketing is really important. The first thing was, getting the first client and word of mouth. A website is, of course, a really important thing. Social media is really an important thing as well. Um, but I think word of mouth is the most important. I think we started in the early days doing trade shows because we were invited to a trade show, the Royal Winter Fair. We got a free booth and we built we were given the space and we built our own booth, and then we had a booth for other trade shows. So we just started doing these trade shows thinking that it was, really great. And we were practicing our sales pitch and meeting more and more people and getting the feedback. And we were sort of inching our way forward. But we realized that by going to trade shows, we were getting clients as far as, 30, 40, 50 kilometers in either direction. And that takes a long time to travel and it's burning fuel. Much better to have a very focused, when you're in a business like this service business, because that's essentially what it is. We're going to their place to garden for them, helping them set up their gardens. So it's much better to go word of mouth, or lawn signs was a really good thing so that people in the neighborhood could see, oh, I want that. That looks beautiful. That's something that I want. But that's for our particular kind of job, which is a landscaping job. But there's lots of other jobs within the sector that can be had as well.
Yeah, she said, those are great points. Thanks. So thank you for answering that.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
One, if you're looking for work, I've found a great, Indeed is a great place if you're a bookkeeper or something like that, the indeed.ca. But I've found goodwork.ca is a great place to find people who are in the same mindset. And also Lionscape Ontario has a job board. And that it's partially knowing when to look for this too. We start hiring in, we're always thinking of hiring, but really we're earnestly hiring in February to start in April.
That's really good information to know. And I did just link Good Work in the chat for everyone. That is a really great resource to find some of these jobs. So if there aren't any more questions, I just wanted to give a huge thank you to Arlene for joining us today. This was super informative and very helpful, and we all really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. So thank you very much. And thanks for being our last webinar guest for the year.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a great night.
You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye, everybody. Happy growing.